Hello, hello, hello. And I'm so excited and honored to be a part of the Intentional Homeschool Planning Conference this year. And I am excited about what we're going to be talking about today. My name is Carla Marie Williams. I am an author, a speaker, and most importantly in my life, wife of 26 years and mom to 6 amazing kids who we have learned together at home for about 15 years. And the last 11 or so years have been unschooling. And so we have been on a grand adventure to find out all of our passions and interests in the things that we want to pursue, not just the kids, but mom and dad too. And so I wanted to share with you the things that have allowed us to let go of traditional expectations and launch kids into the world that love what they're doing. When we started, our kids were very young, and we kind of fell into a more interest-led unschooling lifestyle by mistake. But I cannot imagine 11 years later learning any other way. And so I'm going to share with you how that has been a blessing to our family. I now have 2 adult children, and I have 4 teens here at home, and all of which are working toward their dreams and goals. And it has been a pleasure as their mother to be able to expose them to things and get them prepared for the things that they want to do in their future. So we're going to talk about that. How do I do that? How do I launch kids into the world doing what they love? Well, first and foremost, you're going to see my books mentioned in the links attached to this video. And I know that they will be a blessing to you, but I share lots and lots of information, a lot of which I cannot share in the time that I have with you today. But the first thing that we have to do is let go. We have to let go of our expectations. We have to let go of all of the schoolishness and ways of thinking that kind of have us believing that learning only takes place in one way. And let's just be honest, our brains don't shut on at 8 a.m. and shut off at 3 p.m. They don't shut off in the summer. They don't shut off for Christmas break. They don't, stop working in the evening and things of that nature. Our minds are always moving. We're always curious. We're created that way by the Creator, right? And so our children are no different. And we have to recognize that we cannot box learning in and think that learning only looks one way. And I learned, my kids have taught me that more than anything, as they have grown and they have matured, that learning can look a lot of different ways. And when I let go of all of my stinking thinking and my traditional mindsets, and I get a checkup from the neck up, so to speak, I realize, wow, my kids are growing and flourishing in ways that my traditional schooling mindset would have never acknowledged. And so we have to let go, and we have to open our eyes and really see where learning is happening. And it's happening all day, every day, all around us, outside of classrooms, outside of 4 walls, on a video game, in the kitchen, everywhere that they go. Experiences and exposure is teaching them how to apply common knowledge that everybody assumes that we need to know to their lives and how it relates to their lives. So I want to talk about that. We have to detach ourselves from the outcomes of our children's goals, right? Sometimes we have this view as parents as what we want our kids' career to look like. What we assume based on a skill or a talent that they've shown all their life, exactly what their path is going to be like. And sometimes that's a lot of pressure for kids, but it's also a lot of pressure for yourself, because when things don't go the way that you want them to go, sometimes we get a little frustrated and we forget our kids are human beings, individuals created by God to do exactly what He called them to do, not what we called them to do. And I know that's hard to hear. And I know that a lot of people are like, la, 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 right now. But I'm telling you, once you let go of those preconceived notions, and once you let go of the outcomes of your children's lives and stop trying to control it, so to speak, you will see learning, and you will see them flourish, and you will see them reach the goals that they have for themselves. So let's talk about that. So, we're talking about teenagers, right? So one of the things that I notice is that in the homeschool community and in just the world at large, there's this notion that college is the only option, that is the holy grail. And I think that it sets a lot of our kids up for failure. College is for some. I want my doctor to have gone to college. I want my lawyer to have gone to college. There are certain positions you just can't get around it. But some of our kids have dreams and goals and aspirations that may take another route. And if we make them feel like they have to fit into that box, a lot of times it's a waste of time, energy, money, and talent when they could be pursuing the things that they're passionate about. And you can start exposing them to that right now. It doesn't have to happen after graduation, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But what if your child wants to go into ministry or the mission field? What if they simply want to travel the world and learn and grow and get to know other people and cultures and customs? What if they want to start a business? What if they want to go into the military or into a trade of some kind? Into a training program in a company, or go right into the workforce? There are so many ways that our kids can reach their goals, and so many ways that they can be successful. And as parents, we want to be able to support that and not make them feel like there's only one way for them to pursue that. Now, there's also an option of a gap year. Sometimes some kids may know very, very young. I have a few of those that have known forever what they want to do, and they've never wavered. And then I have others that have waxed and waned and changed their mind and aren't quite sure. And that's okay too. How many adults are walking around that don't know what they want to do when they grow up, right? So we can't expect our kids, our teenagers, to know everything about their future and having a carefully crafted plan for everything that they want to do. Really, as parents, it's just our goal to follow what they're doing now. Help them pursue what they're passionate about and what interests them, what catches their eye and their heart right now. Because believe it or not, none of the money that you're spending, none of the effort and the time that you're spending on whatever it is that your kid is interested in the moment is wasted time or money. It's all going somewhere. They're learning something at every age and stage. They're learning something at every point. Every interest is exposing them to something new and a new body of knowledge and new skills. And so never feel like, oh, okay, I've had my kids took, piano for 5 years, and I envisioned them being a concert pianist and one day playing at Kennedy Center. Well, guess what? Those skills will translate into other skills. So everything isn't their life's work. And we can't, especially when you're approaching things as an unschooling family or interest-led learning family, the first thing we do is pick up on a gift or a talent or a skill. And all of a sudden we see our kids doing that as their life work. And that's not always how things work. Sometimes things are just stations or seasons in our kids' life that are building upon something else. And in our mind, in our view, as parents, we may not be able to see the connection between these interests and these gifts and talents, but they're going somewhere. It's all leading somewhere, even if you don't see the connection. And so encourage your kid right where they are. They don't have to know everything that they want to do with for the rest of their life. And you may have some kids that are very tunnel focused. My oldest son was one of those people. Very, very young, he knew what he wanted to do, and today he is doing it. He has experienced so many different jobs and experiences and exposure in the area of aviation, and now just joining the military that began when he was 10 years old. And then I have other kids that are just starting to settle as a teenager on what direction they want to go, and some that are kind of wavering, and that's okay. They don't need to know. They just they need help in figuring out what's next for them, but they don't need to know the next 20 years in advance, right? So we want to be there for them during those transition times, during those times where they're trying to figure things out and trying to gain new skills. And the beauty with exposure, and I'll talk a little bit about that later, is that it helps our kids recognize what they do love and what they don't. So when they're exposed to lots of different opportunities, places, things, industries, careers, ideas, experiences, they are able to know, hey, that's not for me, or I think that I might be onto something. But if they never see it, they never touch it, they never experience it, how will they know? Right? So our job is exposure specialists as parents. And that's very important. And that's one of the 5 pillars that we'll talk about later. The reality of their dreams and goals is just that it's theirs. How many people are walking around the world that met their parents' every expectation and fulfilled their parents' dreams, went to college for what their parents suggested them to go to, got into a career that their parents suggested them to get into, only to hate it and want out, right? You might be one of those. Maybe that happened to you. It almost happened to me, but I spoke up and my parents were supportive and allowed me to pave my own path. And I'm so glad they did, because I love what I do today as an author and a speaker and as a world family advocate. And so I'm just really encouraging you as parents to make sure that you allow your kids to dream, no matter how ridiculous it sounds to you, no matter how far-fetched, how big, or how different it may be. Encouraging your kids to dream and to follow the paths that set their soul on fire. I guarantee you, you will be happier and they will be happier, because they will be able to operate in who they were created to be, not who you're trying to craft them to be. And again, these are hard things to hear as parents, because we envision success in our own way sometimes. And success is not linear. It can look like scribble on a board, but they'll get there if they have the freedom and the support from you to be able to do that. So it's so important that we allow our teens to do those things. So the idea of mastery, I want to talk about this during the teen years, because you hear it so much in homeschool circles. You hear it a lot in public school circles. But mastery, I really believe, is relative. You can have a child that wants to be a scientist master the piano and never get the chance to master what they're passionate about. You can have a child that you're forcing mastery in mathematics, who is a writer. But because of the pressure that is being put on them, they don't have the time or the bandwidth to exercise that gift and that talent, because they're being forced to master something that is so far outside of their natural wheelhouse. They're exhausted. And they do it because obviously our kids want to please us. They want us to be proud of them, right? And that doesn't mean, oh, your kids shouldn't take math or do anything in mathematics. What I'm saying is we need to appeal to the very bent of each of our individual children. Asking God, who is this person? Who have you created my child to be? And how can I help them get there? How can I be a beneficial encouragement and catalyst to the next level of what you've called them to be? If he's the creator, he would know. So exactly, we would need to ask him, who did he create our children to be? And how can we help them get there? These are all ways to launch kids into the world doing something that they love. And you don't have to wait. If your kids are passionate about something now, figure out how to get them in an environment that will spark new bodies of knowledge and skills and passion for that thing. And if that thing changes, if they change their mind and they decide to do something different, you change with them. You don't say, oh, you said you wanted to be a pianist and now you're saying you want to be a scientist. We're going to stick with pianist. No. Remember, Every experience is building upon another experience, right? So mastery is relative. Help them master the things that help them master who they are and what they're called to do. That's true mastery, right? So keep an open mind. Did you know what you wanted to do with the rest of your life when you were their age? Most of us are trying to figure things out right now, right? In our 30s, 40s, 50s. You can't expect an 18-year-old, 17-year-old to know what they want to do with the rest of their life, but it's okay to encourage them in what they're desiring to do right now, and whatever that is. So be supportive, be encouraging, be a master of exposure to help them in the direction that they're moving. And as you are doing these things, there are 5 actual pillars that are very, very important, that if you keep in your homeschool, if you continue to have these things swirling about your days, I guarantee you that you will have kids that are focused in on who they are, their natural gifts and talents, and where they're going. Number 1, conversations. I think one of the most underrated parts of our homeschools, just as a whole, as a community, is conversation. Now, think about college, think about high school. For myself, the things that I learned the most, the things that were the most meaningful learning for me, were the conversations that we had in our classes. The conversations that opened up dialogue and understanding and debate and things of that nature. The conversations that you're having in your home regarding your children's passions, regarding whatever the news of the day is, current events, history, moral dilemmas, values, all of those things are important, and they are worthy of being counted as education, because conversation is probably one of the largest and most influential parts of your homeschool, if you would admit it. So make those conversations count. Have good, rich conversations, and it can be surrounding anything, and they lead down rabbit holes. Before you know it, you're going in 50 different directions, and you're doing research, and everybody has something valuable to offer to the conversation. It's a big part of our homeschool. Don't belittle the conversations. And then reading. I always tell my children, the ability to read means that nothing is ever hidden from you. That means anything that you want to learn, anything that you want, any skill that you want to build, there is someone somewhere that has either written it online or written it in a book. And those kinds of things can build skills and help your kids increase their passion and their information and just the direction that they want to go in their lives. So reading is so incredibly important. One of the things that we've always done, obviously my children read on their own, and they always have. Books have always been like candy. And the library has always been like a carnival for us. And it's not like that with every family, and I understand that. But a lot of times our kids do what they see us do. Are we reading? Are we sharing the information and the things that are impacting us as we read with our kids? So, starting by example always helps. But one of the things that I've always done is read alouds with our kids. And I'm telling you, we just stopped, and it breaks my heart that we stopped. But them all being teens, and the last 4 that are at home, 3 of them work. So getting everyone home at the same time has been very difficult. And so as a result of that, we've kind of replaced that with movies, because our read alouds, which spanned every, I would say, historical event, time period, different cultures and countries and languages and customs. I mean, we read some valuable, very impactful books over the years. And as a result of that, our conversations, the things that we had the ability to discuss and topics that would have never came up in a curriculum or otherwise came up during our read alouds. And sometimes our read alouds took sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get through. And so because I can't get everybody at home at the same time, I look for those same kind of valuable experiences in movie form, movie or documentary form, where we can still have a very much shorter, maybe 2 hours versus 3 weeks experience together, where we can have those valuable discussions. And there goes those conversations again, right? So reading and conversations are important. Number 3, mentorship. So incredibly important. Let's face it, all of us do not have the skills in the areas that our children are passionate about or what they want to learn. We just don't. And you shouldn't. We're not all going to be gifted in every area. And so finding friends and family and neighbors and coworkers and anyone that is willing to pour into your youth the knowledge and the experience that they have, do it. Do it. You'd be surprised who's next to you in church or who's anywhere around you in your daily goings on that has a passion in the same area that your kids have. And how do you find those people? By opening your mouth. I've just always been bold enough to talk about what my kids' passions were to anyone that will listen. And a lot of times that has gotten them opportunities and experiences that they would not have had, because I can't expose my son to flying a plane. I can't teach my daughter about fashion design. I can't teach my son, how to be a Marine, or my other son about robotics, but I can find programs or people or, just family members, friends that are interested in sharing their knowledge. People that are passionate love sharing their knowledge with the next generation. So find mentors for your kids. And I've had people say, I live in a small town. We don't live, in a place like you and that kind of thing. Hogwash. There are people all around you. You just have to be bold and you have to speak up. You have to ask questions and let people know that you have a kid that is passionate in this area and you need someone to, even if it's a one-day shadow, maybe they're willing to mentor them over time, but a one-day shadow can help a kid understand whether or not this is really what they want to pursue, or it is something that they are really excited about pursuing further. So very important, mentorship. So we talked about conversations, reading, and mentorship. Now, hands-on opportunities. This is so important with this age, because you don't know if you really want to do something until you have the opportunity to be in the environment. And yes, that comes with mentorship, but sometimes it just comes with being surrounded in the environment that exposes them to the ins and outs of that career or that industry. And so giving the opportunity, if there are camps, if there are one-day workshops, if there is a, display at the library or the museum or a community event, even classes at the local college, or even activities that you can bring into your own home, you want to be able to give your kids hands-on experiences in the areas that they're passionate about. And that's going to be different for every kid. What that will look like depends on their interest and depends on their own gifts and talents, right? But you just have to think outside the box and figure out how to get them in an environment that will help them determine whether or not this is something they want to pursue, or maybe not. But they'll never know if they're not exposed to it. Which brings me to the very last thing: exposure, exposure, exposure. I've had so many friends tell me that, and parents just across the world, my kids don't have any interest. Not true. Absolutely, positively not true. If they're living, they have an interest. Now, it is possible that they haven't found it yet. It is very possible. And that's where exposure comes in. Exposure creates fires. It lights things up. And again, it will help them determine if this is something they want to pursue or if they really don't want to after all. But they'll never know until they're exposed to it. So our job as parents, especially if we're focusing on interest-led learning and unschooling, self-directed learning, whatever you want to call it, that you want to be able to expose your kids to new opportunities and ideas all the time. And yes, you want to be able to expose them to interest that they have already expressed, but you also want to be able to expose them to new things, because there's so many opportunities and so many different directions that they could go. Until they really have seen a lot of different things, they don't always know which direction they want to go. They don't always know where their talents will be best utilized, and where their purposes lie. So very important to recognize that, our kids need to be out and about and see as much as possible in order to determine what direction they want to go. And oftentimes, as parents, we look at our kids' future career as their purpose, and that's not always equivalent. Sometimes our kids' overall purpose can have seasons and timings to it, and different jobs and careers that they hold. Like I myself have held significant, successful careers in 3 different industries. And as a result of that, well, actually now 4 different industries, but that wasn't necessarily, those jobs themselves were not my purpose. My purpose overall was what God called me to do. Those jobs in each season of my life allowed me to exercise the gifts and talents that he put on the inside of me, exercise what he had me there for in that season, but that wasn't the overall purpose. And so I don't want you to get confused with, oh, my kid's interest is his purpose, or my kid's future career is his purpose. Those are 2 different things. And that, how do we know the difference? Prayer. We know the difference through prayer. We know the difference through following our kids' leads and through being a support in whatever season they're in at the time. So I want to make sure before closing that I give you the encouragement to know that when you let go, beautiful things will happen. When you let go, it may be scary. When you let go of preconceived ideas or plans or strategies that you have for your kids' future, that you recognize that God has a plan for your kids' future, and that you want to get on that track and off of your own. And that's no easy business. I'm telling you, I have 6 kids, very individual, unique children that have very individual and unique calls on their lives and interests and career goals. And it took a long time for me to let go. And in some instances, with more children than others, because you, as a parent, feel like you can visualize what their future will be like. But that visualization without the guidance of God and without actually paying attention to the guidance and following your children's lead, it will come up with disappointment. And that's the worst place that you want to be, because you don't want your kids to feel like you've disappointed them, because they really haven't. They're on their own path. But when we're stuck on a path that we want for them, that's where disappointment comes up. But we really don't want to be there. We want to be able to be supportive and loving and guide them on the path that they are pursuing, on the path that you together believe God is leading them. So if our children have a unique purpose, if our kids are unique, then their learning experience should also be unique. Their teen years should be filled with those things, with valuable, impactful conversations, reading, mentorship, hands-on opportunities, and lots of exposure to new ideas, opportunities, and experiences that will give them the footing that they need to launch into the world doing what they love. So I hope that this workshop was a blessing for you. You can check out all of my materials online at carlamariewilliams.com. That is Carla with a K, mariewilliams.com. And I am just so excited about you applying these principles in your homeschool and the outcome and the fruit that you will bear as you let go and you allow your children to soar and launch into the world doing what they love. Thank you.